As soon as March 26th, the Michigan Strategic Fund will vote on whether to award $50 million to the proposed Copperwood metallic sulfide mine, a Canadian company's plan to extract Michigan's copper, ship it out of country, and leave over 30 million tons of mine waste on topography sloping towards Lake Superior. That massive waste pile would be a literal stone's throw from the North Country Trail, the longest of all national hiking trails, and the company even wants to mine underneath Porcupine Mountains, recently ranked as the most beautiful state park in America. It's absurd if Michigan thinks for just 1 second that taxpayers would be cool with funding such a monstrosity, but it gets even crazier when we read the grant proposal itself, which is full of so many inaccuracies and unfounded assertions that it's not fit to be a Wikipedia article, let alone the basis for $50 million in spending. Before we run through the problems with the proposal, we want to invite you to join us at that March 26th Michigan Strategic Fund Board meeting. You'll find the details in the video description below. This is your chance to speak up to some of the most powerful names in Michigan and fight on behalf of Lake Superior, the Porcupine Mountains, and the right of all of us to enjoy a moment of peace in nature. Remember, democracy isn't built on voting once every 4 years. It requires your active participation every chance you get. Plus, this is a virtual board meeting, so you don't even have to get off the couch. Anyway, let's get to it. We're going to start out with the points that are flat out wrong. First, they call copper a critical mineral. Well, it's not. Critical mineral status may be assigned by the U.S. Geological Survey and none other, and in 2023, they denied copper an upgrade of status because it is not at risk of undersupply. Next, the proposal states, the other rare earth mineral mine in the region is Eagle, suggesting that Copperwood is also a rare earth mine. But in fact, there is a very specific list of rare earth minerals, and neither copper nor nickel are on it, so neither Eagle nor Copperwood can be referred to as a rare earth mine. But it gets worse. Here the proposal claims that the grant funds would be used in part for reconstruction of County Road 519, allowing for year-round access to Porcupine Wilderness State Park. As someone who actually lives on County Road 519, I can tell you with certainty that it's already a year-round road, which gets plowed after every snowfall, so you can already drive to the state park any day of the year. Pitching a benefit which is already in place kinda feels like a used car dealer trying to sell you the tires you can see with your own eyes are already on the car. What they're really after is a road which can tolerate heavy mining traffic. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume this is not a case of deception, merely unfamiliarity with the area, a feeling which is not helped much when they refer to the Porcupine Mountains as, quote, the Porcupine Wilderness. But check this out. 5 years ago, the company was already awarded a state grant for the very same purpose of turning County Road 519 into a Class A road, which means you can operate heavy loads down it 365 days a year, 24/7. Sounds perfect for an outdoor recreation area, right? So they're asking for a repeat grant for a project that was supposedly completed 5 years ago. Michigan, you might want to look into that. The proposal cites other so-called community benefits, such as improved cell service. But what community are they referring to exactly, since nobody lives within several miles of the mine site? And they say the funds would also pay for upgrades to the electrical infrastructure. But there is no electrical infrastructure to upgrade. What they're actually proposing is a 25-mile rollout of the power grid into a virgin area. 25 miles just happens to be the length of South Boundary Road, which traverses the entirety of the Porcupine Wilderness. Sorry, I mean the Porcupine Mountains. They claim this will lead to long-term benefit to the community during and after operations. But again, what community? And more importantly, is the buffer zone to mainland Michigan's largest designated wilderness area a good place to be rolling out the grid? Would this not provide the foundation for ongoing development long after the mine boards up shop in 10.7 years and forever alter the character of this spectacular place? But here's the most egregious claim yet. The community has met with great support and excitement. So, how did they reach this conclusion? Well, the report repeatedly conflates community, aka regular people, with stakeholders, governments, and organizations. It's true Highland Copper has acquired a few resolutions of support from local city councils, but these were the products of unadvertised meetings completely unbeknownst to the public, and they were voted on by 4 or 5 individuals each. Meanwhile, the petition opposing Copperwood has nearly 14,000 signatures and will soon surpass the population of Gogebic County. Let's move on to claims which are wishy-washy at best. That is, too vague and flaccid to be even taken seriously. The report asserts 6 times that Copperwood would create, quote, up to 380 jobs. Cool. But isn't up to a polite way of saying less than? 5 years ago, Highland Copper projected 250 mining jobs. But suddenly, and quite conveniently just before requesting $50 million from the state, they've come up with a number that's over 50% higher. But nowhere do they explain where those 130 new jobs come from. Can they tell us why they were wrong with their original projection? And if they were wrong then, why trust them now? And check this out. The project coincides with the end of mine life for Eagle Mine, and Highland Copper plans to leverage the talent pool, construction, and logistics efficiencies. In other words, they're planning on scooping up folks already working at Eagle Mine. But is lateral job transfer from another county the same as job creation? Moving on. An environmental assessment of the site has been completed and shows soil conditions are suitable for construction of the planned facility. Unfortunately, the environmental assessment recycles the previous company's rainfall data, which was collected over a decade ago in a period of drought. On average, we've seen 8 inches higher annual rainfall since then, which would certainly have an impact on soil conditions, drainage patterns, and biological communities. Given such large changes, the case could well be made that the current environmental assessment is obsolete. Next, on the topic of that 323-acre toxic waste containment facility, which is projected to be 244 football fields in area and 20 feet higher than the Statue of Liberty from toes to torch tip, the report claims that revegetation leaves the facility looking similar to the surrounding landscape. Does any of this look similar to the surrounding landscape? This thing will be visible from the North Country Trail, from Copper Peak, and from the Lake of the Clouds overlook. Even if you plant some bushes on top 15 years later, once folks know it's there, they will never unsee it. Now, let's move on to unfounded assumptions. Here the proposal claims, the project supports a transition to a lower carbon economy. I checked the end of that sentence for a citation, but there was nothing. Then I scrolled to the bottom of the document thinking surely I would find a source. Nope. So how do we know this claim is based on anything more than wishful thinking? Copperwood will be an extremely energy-intensive operation involving non-stop trucking, rail shipment of heavy payloads to Canada, and all of the processes of mining, from conveyance systems to rock grinding to subterranean blasting and more. And that's just the extraction side of things. So where's the proof that all the fossil fuel-powered mining, processing, and manufacturing and transport will lead to the reduction of a single part per billion of carbon emissions? If you're going to request $50 million on this basis, you need to back it up. And you also need to address the contrary evidence, like this peer-reviewed study from Nature, which states, the metals and mining industry contributes to approximately 8% of the global carbon footprint. Next, the proposal says Copperwood will adhere to strict environmental laws and local regulations, ensuring that it has minimized environmental impacts. Unfortunately, all the laws and regulations in the world won't make copper sulfide mining clean. This 2012 study examined the copper sulfide mines responsible for 89% of U.S. productions and found that at 92% of them, water collection and treatment systems failed to control contaminated mine seepage, resulting in significant water quality impacts, and 100% of copper sulfide mines experienced pipeline spills or other accidental releases. And these were all mines following strict regulations. Neither can laws prevent unexpected disaster from striking. Remember that metallic sulfide waste disposal facility, the closest in history to Lake Superior, erected on downward sloping topography? Well, those things are so unpredictable that they've been described as a live organism. And like live organisms, sometimes they die. Here's the Brumadinho Dam rupture of 2019. Quote, around 2.6 billion gallons of liquefied waste burst out of the dam, flattening nearby settlements, destroying a railway bridge, sending a surge of toxic mud into the Paraopeba River. In all, the disaster killed 272 people. The company behind the dam was ordered to pay $7 billion. The collapse caught many by surprise. It occurred without warning, and 3 years after the mine had stopped dumping its tailings there. The dam had passed safety inspections and had been equipped with state-of-the-art monitoring equipment. And in case you think such things only happen in so-called third world countries, here's the big one the mining industry doesn't want you to know about, the 2014 Mount Polley collapse in British Columbia, which was designed and operated by experts at the top of the field.
It may be the worst environmental disaster in British Columbia's history. Yesterday morning, 10 million cubic meters of wastewater containing dangerous chemicals poured into local waterways when the earthen dam surrounding a tailings pond collapsed.
I think it means the end of our business because we bring fly fisher people in to fish these lakes and rivers, and we're known as a pristine, beautiful lakes and rivers, and I don't know all what's happened in there, but right now we can't take people fishing.
Research shows that serious tailings dams ruptures are actually increasing in frequency, specifically due to the massive quantity of waste created by marginal mines like Copperwood. And Copperwood's facility may be particularly vulnerable, since not only is it erected at the juncture of streams rerouted into unnatural and highly unstable angles, but the infrastructure has been designed to anticipate only 1 in 100-year storm events, despite the fact that there have been 2 1 in 1,000-year storm events in the immediate area in just the last decade, a point which, for some reason, the grant proposal fails to mention. So while it may be true that Copperwood would try to adhere to laws and regulations, that may not have much bearing on the real environmental impacts, because in the end, nature follows her own laws. Alright, what's next? Copperwood is expected to generate an average of over $15 million a year in local, county, state, and federal revenue. Okay, great, but that's assuming they pay their taxes, despite a long track record of mining companies choosing to do otherwise. As we speak, Cleveland Cliffs, the owner of the Tilden and Empire mines in Marquette County just down the road, is delinquent on $50 million in taxes, which are currently being covered by local townships. Quote, and they are feeling the strain. Public services at risk include garbage collection, emergency medical services, fire protection, road maintenance, 911, veteran affairs, search and rescue special ops, medical care facilities, senior services, courts, jail, sheriff's department, road patrol, health department services, and public safety. But mining's good for the community, right? This next one's a doozy. Copperwood will revitalize a blighted community and positively impact the entire western region of the Upper Peninsula. Again, I checked for a source, for a single study, even a bad one, but there wasn't the faintest attempt to qualify these claims. So let's take a look at what the research actually shows. The most comprehensive study ever conducted on the impacts of mining on rural economies, which examined literally all of the relevant quantitative findings, found that roughly half of all cases led to negative outcomes, with only 29% of cases being positive and most of those coming from before 1982, and most of those coming from coal strip mines out west. The study concludes, there is surprisingly little evidence that mining will bring about economic good times, while there is a good deal of evidence for expecting just the opposite. Calm down, I hear you in the back row. Excuse me, but that research is now 20 years old. Sure, but should we expect that greatly increased mechanization and automation in the industry will have improved the situation? Quite the opposite. A 2020 study revealed that the impacts have worsened, especially in areas which depend on outdoor recreation. To quote Harvard economics professor James Stock, former advisor to President Obama, mining increases jobs initially, but after a while the adverse effects kick in because of the effect on tourism and the amenity economy. In 89% of cases, copper mining ends up being a negative for jobs and a negative for incomes. 89%, folks. And so regarding the assertion that Copperwood will revitalize a blighted community, well, there's an 11% chance of that actually being true. Moving on. The creation of long-term, family-sustaining jobs in the area will provide an opportunity for younger people from regional colleges and universities to obtain gratifying long-term employment and remain in the Upper Peninsula. Firstly, is 10.7 years considered long-term? Secondly, what makes you think anyone will stick around for even a second after the mine boards up? Thirdly, if you want to attract young folks to the area, start by not messing up the environment. We also know that the Great Lakes region has been identified as a climate haven, both due to the cooler temperatures and the tremendous quantity of fresh water. This article states, Michigan is the Saudi Arabia of fresh water. The Great Lakes hold 20% of the globe's freshwater supply. In a warming world, Michigan's water will become even more valuable. And of that 20%, Lake Superior is half. So people will certainly come in from out of state, and they'll bring fresh capital, and they'll start businesses which contribute meaningfully to the economy, and many will wind up in those so-called blighted communities where real estate is the cheapest. But they won't come if they feel the environment has been compromised, since that's the reason they're coming in the first place. Alright, let's conclude with one thing the proposal actually gets right. The economic decline of the region started with the closure of the White Pine Mine. Right, and the White Pine Mine closed over 25 years ago, so if we recognize that closing mines leads to long-term decline, then why open more? This is the nature of the resource curse, which is the phenomenon of areas with an abundance of natural resources having less economic growth, less democracy, and worse development outcomes. So Michigan, rather than perpetuate the resource curse by dragging the western UP back to the front lines of extraction, also some foreign executives can profit, ship the copper out of country, and leave a massive waste pile in their wake. Why not look for better uses of our taxpayer dollars? For example, Ontonoggin's hospital is closing down. I'm sure they'd prefer to keep it open. Then there's all that copper mine waste off the coast of the Keweenaw Peninsula which needs to be cleaned. Then there's your own dam safety program, which the Association of State Dam Safety Officials has described as extremely understaffed to perform the mission of dam safety. So it might not be the best time to fund the closest metallic sulfide tailings dam to Lake Superior in history, but it's an excellent time to invest in maintaining dams already in existence. Or you could pay off Cleveland Cliffs taxes. Just kidding. And as for those, blighted communities, well, here's an idea. The two closest towns to the proposed mine site, Wakefield and Bessemer, are situated on the road between Black River Harbor and the Porcupine Mountains, two of the most spectacular areas in the country. Wakefield is particularly beautiful, situated on scenic Sunday Lake. But although millions of vehicles pass through every year, few make the stop in either town due to a lack of amenities expected by out-of-state travelers. A lot less than $50 million could help to open up a few decent restaurants, some bed and breakfasts, a coffee shop or two, maybe a tour agency. Throw in a cannabis dispensary, and you've got yourself a new outdoor recreation capital. And those things don't board up shop in 10.7 years. But first things first, this Copperwood grant proposal belongs next to Harry Potter on the fiction shelf, not on the desk of the Michigan Strategic Fund. We've described multiple inaccuracies, suggesting a lack of basic field knowledge and a lack of familiarity with the area. We've shown you wild claims which don't hold up to a shred of evidence. We haven't had time to tackle even a tenth of what's been omitted, but what's present is more than enough to show that, if you go against your better instincts and vote to approve this thing, just know what you've approved is a bunch of, well, something that starts with bulls and ends in hit. See you on March 26th.